هستند در مورد وضعیت مسیحیان در ایران صحبت خواهند.
I would like to thank Sudwind for organizing this side event about rights of religious minorities and for inviting me to submit a report about the rights of Christians in Iran. The government of Iran and its judiciary have repeatedly infringed the rights of Christians in Iran over the past few years against the national and international legal obligations. In this submission, I will talk about how these organizations have wrongly mistreated Christians by looking at first Christians in Iran, then Christian societies which are labeled as house churches, and finally by looking at church buildings. So about Christians, I submit that over the last few years, hundreds of Christians have been arrested. At least over the last 3 years, about 300 Christians were arrested. Currently, there are 42 Christian detainees, 10 of whom are women. 45 are released on bail, but they're awaiting trial. And these numbers might even be more because some Christians are threatened by the government that if they release any information about the situation, either their families or themselves will be either killed or harmed by the government informally. So they don't release any information about themselves. These Christians who are arrested are mainly members of Christian societies which are labeled by the government as house churches. There are basically people who get together at homes and they read the Bible and pray together. But there are also some leaders of the actual churches with licenses or without licenses that are also arrested. Okay, I will talk a bit slowly so that the translation can catch up, an interpreter. Some of the Christians who are imprisoned, they are forced to listen to Quran and they are put under great pressure in prison to convert to Islam. Their properties are confiscated, some are tortured, and some lose many private rights, such as right to, later on after their release, right to education or right to employment. The charges which are brought against these Christians have recently mainly been actions against public security and propaganda against the regime. In reaching such decisions and in making these sentences, and also in bringing about these charges against Christians, both the government and the judiciary have made error of law and fact. Because Christian gatherings, either at homes in a form of Christian societies called house churches, or Christian gatherings at churches are mainly formed for Christians to worship together and to read and study the Bible. They're not organized to change the regime, and they do not have a goal of any political activity. So these are wrong judgments. Furthermore, Article 26 of the Iranian Constitution gives legitimate right to religious minorities, including Christians, to form societies and to attend these societies. So house churches basically are legitimate. Some church leaders who are not arrested are threatened by the government that unless they cease their activities, or stop going to churches, they will either themselves will be harmed or their families will be harmed. And by harmed, I mean either killed or physically attacked or raped. Those who are released, some of them are technically house arrested, like Reverend Robert Alserian. He was arrested a few months ago. He was then released, but since his release, he has not been allowed to communicate with any other Christian. So we do not know really how he is after his release. So basically, they're house arrested. Furthermore, Christian civil rights have also been infringed. Although the Islamic Republic of Iran made a statement that they are committed to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and also its Article 18, they have repeatedly arrested Christians who have converted from Islam. They have confiscated their properties. They have forced them to quit from their jobs, or they have forced their employers to fire them. I was talking with a Christian a month ago, and he said that he worked as a teacher for the Ministry of Education for 30 years. And after the government found out that he was a Christian, they banned him from teaching anyone, banned him from communicating with any student, and also confiscated his properties. Some Christians have also been banned from leaving Iran, and this is evidently in contravention of Article 13 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And women have also lost custody of their children when they are married to Muslim men, and they later on have to get divorced on the basis that they are Christians and therefore do not have right to custody. The increasing public speeches made against Christians in Iran will evidently promote public enmity and estrangement against Christians in time. And this is against Article 14 of the Iranian constitution, but obviously it seems that the Iranian government is not abiding by that constitution. The government's recent decision to release 2 Iranian Christians, in fact, last week, after Mr. Rouhani's decision, is welcome, but we asked the government to release all Christian prisoners and also members of other religious minorities, and also to protect their civil rights once they are released. Now, we'll move to house churches. As I said, Article 26 of the Iranian Constitution has given legislative right to religious minorities, including Christians who are recognized by Article 13 of the same Constitution, to form societies and attend these gatherings. No one is allowed to refrain them from attending such gatherings, as stated by the Constitution. Many Christians have rightfully formed these societies at home. They get together and the numbers are from like 10 to sometimes 50, and they read the Bible and worship together. However, despite this legal right, the government has repeatedly raided these house gatherings. They have arrested either the people who run these gatherings or who attend them, and have later on either confiscated their properties or asked them to give commitment not to attend or not to communicate with any other Christian. And some of the people who run these societies are sentenced to more than 1 year of imprisonment. their Bibles are also confiscated, and in some cases they have been burnt and destroyed. Since the government's previous ministers and also the supreme leader called these Christian societies, called as house churches, a threat to Islam, some of the charges brought against them are, as I said, actions against public security and propaganda against the regime. And obviously, these decisions are both wrong in fact and law. And I believe that surely those who wrote the Constitution did consider whether forming religious gatherings is an action against public security, and perhaps at the time they decided that these are not, in fact, against public security. And I don't find any reason as to why the current regime should consider them as a threat to the Iranian government. In his previous submission at the Human Rights Council, Mr. Larijani stated that a house church leader had not obtained planning permission to set up a house church and therefore was prosecuted. Now, this comment is legally incorrect because, as I said, these house gatherings, these societies, house churches, are protected by Article 26 of the Constitution. There are similar gatherings which are run by Shia Muslims, which are called Jalase Quran or Quran meetings. At these gatherings, Shia Muslims get together at houses, they read Quran, they worship together, and the numbers are similar, from 10 to sometimes 100 even, and they don't need any planning permission to have these gatherings, and so Christians should not also obtain such permissions. I'll move to church buildings. The government has increasingly restricted access of both Christians and the public to church buildings. Over the past few years, they have closed down churches which run services in Farsi. Obviously, there are churches which are Armenian Orthodox or Azerian Orthodox. The languages of their services are in Armenian or Azerian that the public wouldn't understand. It seems that the government doesn't have any problem with them, but has a problem with churches that run their services in Farsi. Some churches had obtained their planning permissions prior to the establishment of the Islamic Republic of Iran, but after the establishment of the current government of the Islamic Republic of Iran, despite the efforts of the leaders, the government has not renewed their licenses. And later on, they closed down these churches because they don't have any license. And they say that these are illegal churches. They have also restricted churches which run services in Farsi so that only the members should attend. So churches should not invite or even accept non-Christians or Christians who are not members of the church. Furthermore, the government requested the churches to provide the national identity card details of its members, and they also installed CCTV cameras in some churches to identify who attend church services. These actions are basically to identify first Christians, secondly people who are interested in Christianity, and therefore these actions are basically to identify people's belief. Now, this move is against Article 23 of the Constitution of Iran because it prohibits the government from requesting details of one's religion or belief. Church members, however, some of them carried on attending services, but then the government closed down some of these churches, like the Church of Jamaat Rabbani in Tehran. And Emmanuel Church in Tehran also, although it is allowed to run services just for its members, its official office was closed down about a year ago. This office ran legal marriage ceremonies for Christians. Therefore now, Christians do not have anywhere to register the marriage, and Christian couples have to register the marriage as Islamic marriage. So they have to undergo Islamic marriage ceremonies. Also, some Christians who have lost their family members have been forced to run Islamic funeral ceremonies, and by the, in fact, the intelligence service or the Ministry of Intelligence in Iran. So it is obvious that the Islamic government of Iran has taken measures to prevent access of both Christians and the public to Christian societies, to churches, to Christian literature and religion, despite the Christians' constitutional right and international legal rights. Yeah, and therefore, what I submit is that now Iran, that has said that it is committed to its international obligations, should in fact start taking measures to protect these constitutional rights. Thank you.